Hey everyone, Sarah here. Rewind Justice brings you revenge stories that will blow your mind. If you're ready, hit subscribe and let's go.
My name is Waverly Osei and I am 32 years old. I want to start with a number, because numbers are where this story lives. The number is $174,960. That is what I contributed, across 4 years of my adult life, to the household that raised my sister and funded the version of her that walked down an aisle in a Monique Lilia gown at the Thornfield Manor estate in Pasadena, California on the last Saturday of October, in front of 112 guests, none of whom knew that I had been handed a gray paper badge at the front entrance that read, "Limited Access Guest." My mother whispered, when she pressed the badge into my palm, "That means no plate, Waverly." She said it the way you tell someone the bus schedule. Factual. Slightly impatient, as though she had other things to attend to. She was wearing a champagne-colored mother-of-the-bride dress that I had not seen before and a strand of freshwater pearls that had belonged to her own mother, and she turned back to the receiving line before I had finished reading the badge. I stood at the entrance of Thornfield Manor with a gray paper badge in one hand and a cream-colored clutch in the other, and inside the clutch was a sealed white envelope, and inside the envelope was a cashier's check for $10,000 made out to Delia Osei Hargrove, which was going to be my sister's name when she cashed it. I had drawn the check 4 days earlier at the Pacific Premier Bank branch on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. The teller had asked if I needed an envelope. I said yes. I wrote Delia on the front in black ink and sealed it and put it in my clutch and drove home. I want you to understand what that $10,000 represented before I tell you what I did with it. Because the money is not the point of this story. The money is just the shape the point took. I am a senior financial analyst at Caldwell Reyes Partners, a mid-sized investment advisory firm with offices on South Lake Avenue in Pasadena. I have worked there for 6 years. Before that I completed my MBA at the University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business, which I attended on a partial academic scholarship and paid the remainder of myself through a combination of deferred loans and weekend work at a property management company in Koreatown. Before that I completed my undergraduate degree in economics at Cal Poly Pomona, commuting from my parents' house in Azua for 2 of those 4 years to save on housing costs, because my parents had made clear, when I was 17, that college support was available for 1 child at a time and Delia was 2 years younger and her turn would come and they needed to be fair. I do not resent the commute. I want to be clear about that. I made it work. I graduated with a 3.7 GPA and a job offer and an understanding of what it meant to build something from the exact materials available to you, without supplementation, without the net that other people had. I am good at building within constraints. I have been practicing since I was 17 years old. The $174,960 is not a number I invented. I calculated it carefully, the way I calculate everything, on a Saturday morning at my kitchen table in my apartment on Marengo Avenue in Pasadena, approximately 6 weeks before the wedding, after my mother called to ask whether I would be contributing to the rehearsal dinner costs. I opened a spreadsheet. I went back through 6 years of bank records and family financial history and I built the number from its components, because I wanted to know what I was actually talking about before I decided anything. Here is what the $174,960 is made of. In the year after my father's stroke in 2017, when he was out of work for 11 months and my mother's income as an administrative coordinator at the Azua Unified School District did not cover the mortgage and the medical co-payments and the utilities together, I transferred money to my parents' account every month. I had just started at Caldwell Reyes. I was 26 years old. I transferred $1,200 in January, $1,200 in February, $1,500 in March when the physical therapy costs came in higher than expected. This continued, in varying amounts, for 22 months. Total from that period, $28,400. Delia was in college during my father's stroke. She was at the University of Arizona in Tucson, studying communications. She did not transfer money to my parents' account. She was a college student and she did not have the money, and I do not fault her for that. What I will note is that when she graduated, 2 years later, and started her first job as a marketing coordinator at a beverage company in Scottsdale, she also did not begin transferring money, and my transfers continued anyway, at reduced amounts, for another 14 months. Not because I was asked to continue. Because no one told me to stop and I did not think to ask. There are further line items in the spreadsheet. The new water heater my parents needed in the fall of 2019, $1,340, which I paid because my father called on a Tuesday afternoon and mentioned it in the particular way he mentioned things, not as a request, just as a fact being shared, which was the family's fluent language for a request. The car my mother needed when her 2011 Honda Accord finally needed a transmission replacement that cost more than the car was worth. I found her a 2017 Toyota Camry with 34,000 miles at a dealer in Monrovia and put $6,000 toward the down payment. Delia sent a congratulations text when my mother got the car. She did not ask how it had been paid for. The remaining entries in the spreadsheet are smaller. Groceries during a tight month. A plane ticket for my father to attend his brother's funeral in Accra when the timing was bad and the fares were high. My mother's reading glasses, twice, because she kept misplacing the first pair. A laptop for Delia's second year of college because the one she had been using died and my parents were in the middle of the water heater month and I bought the replacement without discussing it with anyone and shipped it to her dormitory address in Tucson. I am not listing these things because I want credit for them. I am listing them because I built a number and I want you to understand what the number is made of, so that when I tell you what happened at the entrance of Thornfield Manor in Pasadena on the last Saturday of October, the weight of the gray paper badge and the 5 words I said at the gift table land with their full and accurate mass. The number is $174,960. The badge said limited access guest. My mother said, "That means no plate, Waverly." I put the badge in my clutch next to the white envelope and walked to the east side of the building where the overflow guests were directed. I need to tell you about the rehearsal dinner before I tell you about the reception, because the rehearsal dinner is where I first understood with complete clarity what I was walking into. I had not been invited to the rehearsal dinner. My mother had called me 3 weeks before the wedding to let me know that the rehearsal dinner was being held at Rosalind's, a well-regarded Ethiopian restaurant on South Fairfax Avenue in Los Angeles, and that it was limited to the wedding party and immediate family due to the restaurant's private dining room capacity. She said this in the tone she used for things that were settled and did not require discussion. I said I understood. I asked if there was anything she needed help with in the week before the wedding. She said she thought they had everything covered. I found out from my cousin Adiz, who had not been invited to the rehearsal dinner either, that the private dining room at Rosalind's seats 40 people. The rehearsal dinner had 23 attendees. I know this because Delia posted photographs on her Instagram story the following morning. The long table, the injera spread, the champagne glasses, the bridesmaids in matching robes, my parents at the head of the table, and behind them, mounted on the wall of the private dining room, a large printed banner that read Delia and Cord with a photograph of the two of them. I am in none of the photographs. I had not expected to be. What I had not expected, I will admit, was the banner. Specifically, I had not expected that the graphic design for the banner, the font selection, the color palette, the photograph crop, was identical to the design I had sent my mother 8 months earlier when she asked me, by text, to put together some visual elements for wedding signage. I had spent a Saturday afternoon on it. I had used Canva and a stock photo subscription I paid for through my work account. I sent her 5 options. She replied, "These are great. Thank you." That was the last I heard of them. The banner behind my parents at the rehearsal dinner I had not been invited to was option 3. I looked at it for a long time on the small screen of my phone, standing in my kitchen on Marengo Avenue at 9:47 in the morning, and then I put my phone in my pocket and went to make coffee and stood at the window and watched the San Gabriel Mountains for a while, which is something I do when I need to think clearly. The mountains are very good for thinking. They do not move and they do not comment and they have been there much longer than any of this. I thought about the banner. I thought about the spreadsheet. I thought about the $10,000 cashier's check I had drawn 4 days earlier at Pacific Premier Bank. Then I thought about something my colleague at Caldwell Reyes, a woman named Priya Subramaniam who has been a senior analyst for 11 years and whose professional judgment I respect more than almost anyone I have ever worked with, said to me once during a project debrief. We had spent 4 months on an analysis that a client ultimately chose not to act on, and I was frustrated in the way you get frustrated when work you have done carefully and well produces no visible result. Priya looked at me across the conference table and said, "The work is still real. What they did with it doesn't change what it was." I thought about that on the morning after the rehearsal dinner photographs. I thought, the work is still real. What they did with it doesn't change what it was. Then I thought about the gift table. The Thornfield Manor estate is a 1920s Spanish colonial revival property on a hillside in Pasadena, with terracotta tile roofing and arched doorways and bougainvillea climbing the exterior walls in deep magenta. It is a beautiful venue. I know this because I am the one who found it. My mother had asked me, 14 months before the wedding, to research venues in the Pasadena area that could accommodate between 80 and 120 guests and had outdoor ceremony space. I sent her a comparison document with 7 options, ranked by cost per head and availability and proximity to the hotels where out-of-town guests would be staying. Thornfield Manor was my top recommendation. I had called the venue coordinator myself to confirm a preliminary date hold. My mother booked it the following week. She texted me a photograph of the signed contract with 3 celebration emojis. I arrived at Thornfield Manor at 4 in the afternoon on the day of the wedding. I wore a fitted sage green midi dress and small gold stud earrings and my grandmother's thin gold bracelet on my left wrist, which I wear only on occasions that matter. I had done my hair that morning in the way I save for important things, pressed back, with 2 small gold pins at the temple. I looked, I thought, like a person attending her only sister's wedding. Like a person who had chosen her outfit carefully. Like a person who had driven across Los Angeles on a Saturday afternoon to watch someone she loved get married. My mother was at the front entrance with 2 of her friends from the church choir. She had a small table with a guest check-in list and a tray of items that I understood, as I approached, were the tiered access badges. Green for wedding party. White for family and ticketed reception guests. Gray for overflow. She looked at me. She looked at the list. She reached into the tray and retrieved a gray badge. It's just how the capacity sorted out, she said. She pressed the badge into my palm without making full eye contact. You know how these things are. The venue has a limit. I looked at the badge. I looked at the tray. There were 4 gray badges remaining in the tray, and approximately 11 white badges, and 3 green. I looked back at my mother. She had already turned to greet the couple behind me. I put the badge in my clutch. I walked around the side of the building. The overflow area at Thornfield Manor was a stone-paved terrace on the north side of the property, shaded by 2 large Canary Island palms and fitted with 15 white folding chairs. When I arrived, 9 of them were occupied. I recognized none of the people in them. This made a particular kind of sense to me, and the particular kind was this. If you seat your own daughter in the overflow section with people no one recognizes, the overflow section contains only strangers. There is no one to witness what was done to her. There is no one who knows to be upset on her behalf. It is a very clean social operation, if you think about it. Invisible, even. The frame is the right size. No one notices the person who was left out of it. I sat in the 3rd chair in the 1st row. I set my clutch in my lap. I put my hands on top of it. The ceremony started at 5 o'clock. Delia walked down the aisle in the Monique Lilia gown. She was beautiful. I want to say that without qualification, because it is true and because whatever complicated thing exists between us, my sister is a beautiful person and she was a beautiful bride, and watching her walk toward Cordell Hargrove under the arches of Thornfield Manor while the string quartet played Claire de Lune, I felt something real. Something that had nothing to do with the gray badge or the rehearsal dinner or the banner or the spreadsheet. Something that was just, she is my sister. I have known her since she was born. I remember the day she came home from the hospital. I remember teaching her to tie her shoes on the front step of the house in Azua. I remember her calling me from Tucson when a boy broke her heart for the first time. I remember thinking, when she texted me Marcus's photograph after their 3rd date, that's the one. She is my sister. That is not a complicated thing. The complicated things are around it, not inside it. The ceremony lasted 28 minutes. When it ended, the guests moved toward the main hall for the reception. A catering staff member appeared at the overflow terrace and said that the garden bar would open in approximately 20 minutes for non-reception guests. The garden bar was through a gate on the west side of the property. Away from the main hall. Away from the gift table. I stood up. I smoothed my dress. I picked up my clutch. I walked to the main hall. The main reception hall at Thornfield Manor has 20-foot ceilings and original terracotta tile floors and 3 iron chandeliers that throw warm light across everything and make even ordinary things look significant. The gift table was along the south wall, a long table with white linen and a satin runner in champagne and a hand-lettered acrylic sign that read Delia and Cord in the same font from option 3 of my design document. I walked through the hall. The room was in that particular pre-dinner movement, guests finding seats, the bar line forming, conversations beginning. No one stopped me. I walked directly to the gift table and I set my clutch on it and I unzipped the outer pocket and I took out the white envelope with Delia written in black ink on the front. I held it. I thought about $174,960 spread across 6 years of bank records in a spreadsheet on my laptop at home. I thought about the water heater and the Camry down payment and the laptop shipped to Tucson. I thought about 22 months of monthly transfers to my parents' account while my father was recovering and Delia was at the University of Arizona. I thought about the banner behind my parents at the rehearsal dinner I had not been invited to, in the font I had chosen on a Saturday afternoon in Canva. I thought about my mother's voice, that means no plate, Waverly. I thought about Priya in the Caldwell-Reyes conference room. The work is still real. What they do with it doesn't change what it was. The $10,000 was real. I had built it. I had chosen to build it. That was mine, regardless of whatever it had been handed next to. And what it had been handed next to, the gray badge, the overflow terrace, the systematic and apparently quite deliberate removal of my name from the frame, was also real, and was also mine to account for, in whatever way I decided. I put the envelope back in my clutch. I zipped the pocket closed. I turned around. The woman standing 4 feet to my right had been there for at least 30 seconds. I had been aware of her in the peripheral way you are aware of a person who is very still, not watching you, exactly, but present with attention. She was in her early 60s. Tall. Wearing a deep burgundy dress with a simple neckline and no jewelry except small pearl earrings and a thin watch with a gold face. Her posture was straight and entirely unhurried. The posture of a woman who has stood in many rooms and required none of them to adjust for her arrival. This was Eleanor Hargrove. Cordell's mother. I knew this because I had seen her in a photograph Delia had texted me after the engagement. The Hargrove family, at a dinner in their home in San Marino. Eleanor Hargrove was a retired circuit court judge. She had served on the Ninth Circuit for 19 years before her retirement 3 years earlier. She now taught a seminar on judicial ethics at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. She had the face of a person who has spent 19 years listening to people tell her things they believe are true and calibrating very precisely how much of that belief is actually warranted. She looked at the clutch in my hand. She looked at the gift table. She looked at me. "You took something back," she said. It was not a question and it was not an accusation. It was the statement of a person identifying a fact. "Yes," I said. She was quiet for a moment. "What did it say?" she asked. "Your badge." I looked at her. "Limited access guest," I said. "No meal." Eleanor Hargrove was quiet again. Something moved through her expression that was controlled and complete and very brief. The expression of a person arriving at a conclusion they had perhaps been approaching for some time. She set her champagne glass on the gift table very deliberately, as though putting it down was a statement. She looked across the room. I followed her eyes. My mother was standing near the bar with Delia's future mother-in-law, Margaret Chu, who had flown in from Portland for the wedding. My mother had a glass in her hand and was mid-sentence in whatever conversation they were having. As I watched, something in my mother's peripheral awareness shifted and she turned her head and saw us, me and Eleanor Hargrove, standing together at the gift table, Eleanor's champagne glass set down deliberately on the white linen. My mother went still. Eleanor said, without raising her voice, in a tone that carried precisely as far as the immediate vicinity without effort, "Patricia, would you come here for a moment?" It was not the kind of sentence you declined. It had the specific gravity of 19 years of a courtroom in it, not loud, not threatening, just inescapably directed. 3 or 4 guests in the immediate area went quiet in the way of people who have recognized that the conversation adjacent to them has become the one worth listening to. My mother excused herself from Margaret Chu. She crossed the room. I counted, as she walked toward us, the faces that turned, 11 guests within clear sight line. My Aunt Adiz, near the entrance. 2 women from my mother's church choir. A couple I recognized as friends of the Hargrove family from San Marino. And Delia, who had come in from the courtyard with Cordell at some point in the previous few minutes and was now standing near the cake table, her hand in his, watching. My mother arrived. She looked at me. She looked at Eleanor. "This is Waverly," she said. Her voice was careful and warm in the way it got when she was in public and needed things to look a particular way. "My older daughter." "I know," Eleanor said. We've just been introduced. She paused. She was seated at the overflow terrace. My mother opened her mouth. The venue has a capacity. Patricia. Eleanor's voice did not change in volume or temperature. Waverly was seated at the overflow terrace at her own sister's wedding. She left the sentence sitting there without editorializing, without anger, which was far more effective than either would have been. The sentence just sat in the air between them and the 11 people nearby with its full and accurate weight. My mother said, the seating was based on the guest count, and the venue. I found the venue, I said. My mother looked at me. I researched 7 venues, I said. I sent you a comparison document 14 months ago. Thornfield Manor was my first recommendation. I called the coordinator to hold the date. I designed the signage you used at the rehearsal dinner. I was not raising my voice. I was stating facts, the way you state facts in a financial analysis, without decoration, because they do not need it. I have contributed $174,960 to this family over the past 6 years. I have a spreadsheet. The number landed the way numbers land when they are specific, not as an abstraction, not as an exaggeration, but as a fact with visible weight. I watched my mother's face process it. Watched the calculation happen. Watched her look at Eleanor Hargrove, whose expression had not changed, and at the 11 guests nearby, and at Delia, who had let go of Cordell's hand and was standing very still near the cake table. My mother said, Waverly. I'm not going to make a scene, I said. I'm not going to raise my voice. I just want you to know, in front of the people who are here, that I know what I've given to this family, and I know what I was handed at the door today, and I know the difference. I looked at Eleanor Hargrove. She held my gaze for a moment and gave me the smallest possible nod. The nod of someone confirming a fact. I picked up my clutch. I looked at my mother. I said, take care of yourself. 5 words. I turned and walked out. Behind me I heard Delia's voice, high and slightly unsteady, saying my name. I heard the click of heels on the terracotta tile. I did not stop. I walked through the arched doorway and out into the October evening air, which in Pasadena in late October carries a particular coolness that the afternoon does not, the heat of the day releasing, the San Gabriel Mountains going dark blue against the sky, the bougainvillea on the exterior walls going deep and shadowed. I walked across the parking lot to my Civic. I put my clutch on the passenger seat. I sat for a moment with both hands on the wheel. My Aunt Adiz came out of the main entrance 4 minutes later. She had her own clutch under her arm and she walked directly to my car and got in the passenger seat without asking. She set my clutch on the floor and sat in its place. How long has that been going on? She said. It was not really a question. A while, I said. She nodded slowly. She was my mother's younger sister, and she had her mother's eyes, my grandmother's eyes, and the particular expression that those eyes had when they were looking at something that had been a long time in the making. I watched you walk to that table, she said. I watched you take it back. I've been in this family for 58 years and I have never seen anyone do that. I looked at her. Your mother loves you, she said. I need you to know that I believe that. And I need you to know that love and fairness are not the same thing, and she has never learned the difference, and that is not your fault and it is not something you can fix. She was quiet for a moment. Whatever you decide to do going forward. Whatever you decide about the money, about the relationship, about any of it. She put her hand briefly on my arm. I'll support you. I'll say that to your mother's face if you need me to. I drove home. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment on Marengo Avenue in Pasadena. I have lived there for 3 years. The windows face east and in the mornings the light comes in flat and clean and without drama, which is the kind of light I prefer. I have a small balcony with a terracotta pot that I have been growing herbs in since last spring. Basil, rosemary, flat-leaf parsley. Because I read somewhere that growing something from seed requires you to pay attention to it every day, and I wanted something in my life that rewarded daily attention with visible growth. The basil is enormous. It has gone to flower twice and I have cut it back twice and it keeps growing. I set my clutch on the kitchen counter. I took out the white envelope. I set it on the table. I made myself a cup of tea and sat with it for a while, not deciding anything, just sitting. The cashier's check was made out to Delia Osei Hargrove. I had not voided it. I was not ready to void it, not because I was planning to give it to her. I did not know whether I was planning to give it to her. but because voiding it felt like a decision I should make consciously, not in the immediate aftermath of a parking lot and an Auntie D's and an October evening and 5 words. I left the envelope on the table and went to bed. 3 days later, Cordell Hargrove called me. Not Delia. Cordell. I was surprised enough by this that I answered on the second ring. He said he wanted to apologize for what had happened at the wedding, and that he had not known about the badge arrangement until after I left, and that he was embarrassed. He said it carefully, in the direct way he had, the same directness I had noticed in him the first time Delia introduced us, the thing that made me think he was the one. He said, "Waverly, I want you to know that you matter to my wife. She doesn't always know how to say that. But she told me about everything you've done for your family and she has never once talked about it like it was a small thing." I thanked him. I meant it. It did not fix anything but it was real, and I have learned to recognize real things when they arrive and not discount them because of what surrounds them. Delia called on the 8th day after the wedding. She called at 7:03 in the morning, which I do not think was intentional but which I noted anyway. She cried for the first 3 minutes, which I let happen without filling the space. When she stopped crying she said, "I didn't know about the badge until that day. I didn't know what Mom had written on the seating chart. I want you to know that." I said, "I believe you." She said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it. The planning. The rehearsal dinner. All of it. I've been letting things happen around you for years and not asking enough questions." I sat with that for a moment. It was a big sentence. It was the biggest sentence she had ever said to me in 32 years of being sisters. I did not want to diminish it by responding too quickly. So I let it land and breathe and become whatever it was going to become in the air between us. I said, "That's a good place to start." She said, "What about the money? The gift?" "I don't want you to." "The envelope is in my desk drawer," I said. "I haven't voided the check. I'm not ready to decide what it means yet, and I need it to mean something clean when I give it to you. If I give it to you, let me have some time." She said okay. I have not spoken to my mother since the wedding. She has texted me twice. The first text said, "I hope you're well." The second text said, "I'd like to talk when you're ready." I have read both texts. I have not replied. I am not closing a door. I want to be very precise about this. I am not done with my mother. I am not delivering an ultimatum. I am not performing no contact as a punishment or a strategy. I am simply not ready, and not ready is a complete sentence, and I have spent 32 years treating my own not ready as a negotiable position and I am finished doing that. My mother loves me. I believe that. I also believe that love is not the same as being seen, and for a long time I confused the two, and I do not confuse them anymore. Eleanor Hargrove sent me a handwritten note that arrived 12 days after the wedding, on her personal stationery, from her address in San Marino. It said, "Dear Waverly, I want you to know that what you did at the gift table required more composure and clarity than most people bring to far less complicated situations. Cordell has spoken highly of you for as long as he and Delia have been together. I hope this is the beginning of a relationship between our families that reflects your values, not only the ones that were on display that evening. With respect and regard, Eleanor Hargrove." I have put the note in my desk drawer, beside the white envelope with Delia's name on the front. I think about $174,960 sometimes. I think about whether it was the right amount to give, the right way to give it, the right thing to have done over 6 years of Friday transfers and water heaters and down payments and laptops shipped to Tucson. I think about Priya's sentence, "The work is still real, what they do with it doesn't change what it was," and I think it is true and I think it is not the whole truth, because what they did with it did change something, just not the work itself. It changed me. It clarified something about what I would and would not continue to be inside my own family, what frame I would and would not keep standing at the edge of, what I would let be decided for me and what I would take back. The cashier's check is in my desk drawer. I have not decided yet. The basil on the balcony needs cutting back again. The mornings come in flat and clean through the east windows. The mountains are there when I need them. I go to work on Monday mornings and I track things, deliverables, timelines, confirmation windows, the gap between what was promised and what was delivered. I am good at this. I have always been good at this. What has changed is that I have started doing it inside my own life, not only inside spreadsheets, and the results are different when you are also the one with the authority to act on what the numbers say. The frame has a different size now. I built it. Type enough in the comments if you've been the one who documented everything and received a grey badge anyway. I see you. If this story found you at the right moment, if some part of this felt true in a way you have been waiting for someone to say out loud, subscribe. Only if it genuinely connected with you. Only if you want to. The door has a lock now. I hold the key. And for the first time in a very long time, that is the only arrangement I am willing to accept.